Welcome. My name is Janice B Gordon, co-president of the Professional Speaking Association. So that's PSA Southeast. And I'm also visiting fellow of Cranfield School of Management, Consulting and Training and Sales, Key Account Management and Strategic Sales. Now, as a professional speaker, I talk about scaling your sales. Today, I'm up close and personal with the lovely Julie Creffield. Hello, Julie.
Hello.
Hello. I would first of all like to introduce Julie, and then we're going to run into some questions. So Julie's got an incredible career. She's an incredible personality. I absolutely love her. She's the founder of Too Fat to Run, which is a global business fitness brand that inspires millions of overweight women to improve their health and happiness, whatever size you may be. And Julie works to inspire women to lose their fear and achieve more than they ever thought possible. And this is being truly, authentically yourself. Her Going the Distance system helps audiences to clarify their why, to dump the excess weight of guilt and procrastination. She gives effective tools to help overcome I'm not good enough. And so many people, not just women, but men as well, feel that way. And we struggle with this. So Julie helps you to overcome all of that language and noise in your head that's stopping you from really truly being your full potential. Julie is a professional speaker, and this is how I met her, although she only lives down the road from me. And as an experienced workshop facilitator, she encourages bursts of movement to kick-start healthy, sustainable habits. I know this is long, Julie, but she's so interesting. Julie is a certified life coach and a prolific writer and a global expert on plus size fitness. Through her work, she offers inspirational advice, support to hundreds of thousands of overweight women. So thank you for joining us, Julie, and welcome.
It's a pleasure. What an intro.
Well, I had to do it all because I know that you're amazing. You're absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So let's just share with everyone else why you are amazing. So let me jump into the first question. I'd like to know about your start, where how you became such an amazing person. So think about your early life. What's the one thing that you've always taken with you or has created the biggest impact in your life?
I think, I come from really humble beginnings. I grew up in a massive family. My mum had 6 kids. She raised us by herself. My dad wasn't around. And, we didn't have a lot. We didn't have a lot of money. There wasn't even really a lot of love to go around, if I'm being honest. So I always felt like I kind of I had to prove myself. That's how I felt. Like I wanted to stick out. And, growing up, I would normally stick out for being naughty, and misbehaving at school. And, but it was always, looking back now, I know it was always, in a kind of attempt to get attention. And I wasn't particularly bright. Well, I wasn't particularly academic at school, but I was very bright. I was quite street savvy, and I was really good at kind of getting the measure of people. So the teachers hated me because I could see their flaws, and if there was a weakness I could find it, so I did all right at school with my qualifications, but I didn't excel at anything, and so I didn't really have a desire to do much. I mean, now I kind of know that what I really wanted to be was a writer, but when you're 11, 12, 13, you don't know that to be a writer coming from an East End background is even possible. So it just wasn't on my radar. So I went into drama, which kind of seemed to be the next best thing to that, kind of in terms of storytelling. So I ended up going to college and doing really practical college qualifications, and just by chance I ended up going to university. It was not on my radar. Nobody else from my family had ever gone. It was just a bid to get away from home and my siblings and just to do something different. And I got into a university in Winchester, which couldn't have been any different from my upbringing in East London. It was an absolute culture shock. And I really struggled with like the academic nature of it, and just really had to find a way of just being myself, because I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in at all. And I ended up doing my my degree, my dissertation on kind of cultural diversity and how dance could be used as a way of expressing who you were. And I managed to get a first-class degree because my research was so kind of impactful and different to anything they'd ever seen at that university. So, you know, saying that sounds a bit weird. Like, yeah, I left uni with a first-class degree, but I still felt quite down on myself. I didn't feel like I was very employable. I didn't know where I was going to, there wasn't like a pathway for my career. So I kind of stumbled through lots of different jobs. You know, I've done all sorts of jobs you wouldn't believe. But I think, you know, the thing that really kind of inspired me was when the Olympics came to town in East London, and you'll know what I mean by this. You know, the games come to town. I wasn't at all interested in sport. I don't think I'd even watched the games before, and I'd found myself in this job where I was managing volunteers who were then going to be working on the Olympics, and just something inside me, you know, whether it was the global nature of it, whether it was the bringing of communities together, I found something that I was good at. You know, I could help inspire people to get involved. And there were loads of people that were so down on the games and was like, well, you know, it's a waste of money, and, you know, it's ruining our, you know, our heritage and all this kind of stuff, you know. And so I had a big task really to inspire people. And I realized I was quite good at rallying the troops and getting people to believe in stuff that they didn't initially believe in. And I think probably that is where, I found myself, I think, you know, I found myself in terms of my voice, writing. I'd write speeches for politicians, and, you know, I just, you know, I had a bee in my bonnet about something to get inspired by.
Fantastic. And I know that you've gone on to continue to inspire many people, and especially through your speaking. So what's the most valuable benefit of being a professional speaker, Julie?
I think, you know, I used to really worry about speaking in front of audiences. I've run workshops with young people and, you know, done kind of big kind of community things, but I would never have described myself as a professional speaker until I set up my blog and started kind of working on my own business. And I joined the PSA because, you know, I really wanted to overcome my fears, to be more impactful rather than just getting up and kind of waffling. I wanted to take myself much more seriously, and I was getting all these media opportunities through my work as a kind of plus size runner. So I wanted to be able to kind of know that, you know, if I get a TV appearance that's 90 seconds, I'm going to make the very best of those 90 seconds. And I realized that actually, you know, the power of words, you know, is kind of a given when you're a blogger like me. But, you know, I'd write really powerful stuff, and then I'd try and talk about it, and the power, you know, wouldn't necessarily be there. So I think that's why I decided, you know, that I wanted to take it seriously as a profession, because I know, you know, someone could listen to an interview like this and it triggers something that makes a massive impact on their lives. And in the sports world, in the world of kind of plus size fitness, often women will listen to my audiobooks, and something in the way that they're kind of read out will just inspire them to think differently. So I think the power of the word, whether it's spoken or written, is kind of what lights me up, really.
I think you're absolutely right. I know when I go out speaking, it may be like a phrase, a word, and you can see that somebody suddenly lights up. It's the thing that resonates with them. Words are so powerful, but it's also how you portray the words as well, how you bring them to life. It's so critical. I think that, you know, often people, I think in speaking, you focus more on your words because you have to make every single word, like in writing as well, you have to make every single word count. And I think it's a great skill for everybody to be aware of and to practice. But I know that you've certainly put yourself forward, and I know that you spoke in South Africa, the Professional Speaking Association, but not only that, you did an impromptu comedy gig as well. So tell us a bit more about that, because that really is facing your fear.
So, like, you know, it's one of those things, no one ever wants to admit that they're funny, you know, because that's a bit big-headed. But normally when I've had a drink or whatever, people go, oh, you're really funny, you've got a real way with words. And I love telling stories. So if something really funny happens to me, I'll tell that story, you know, over and over again. And my blog very much came out of the fact that some really funny stuff happened to me. So I would write about it. And then, so as you know, at the PSA convention every year, there's a stand-up comedy night, and it's a bit of fun. It's a bit of a way of kind of testing yourself, challenging yourself. And I can remember the very first 2 years that I went, I said to myself, God, I could never do that. Like, it's the scariest thing ever. And then after the second one, I was like, I wonder if I could. So I committed to it, and I had a year to prepare. But it's a very different skill in terms of, you know, delivering it's very different to just delivering a speech. And I worked really hard on it. And, you know, but the thing is, you develop like a 15-minute set or whatever, and you still don't know if it's funny until the minute you do it in front of an audience. Like, even like I'd read it out to my sister and she'd be like, oh, that's hilarious. But you don't trust your sister because, you know, she loves you and she wants you to do well. And I remember I didn't want to do it at the PSA straight off. So I went to my local theatre and did it there. And I was last in a lineup of 10 newbies, and I just sat there so nervous. But literally after the first laugh, I mean, that's all you need to get is the first laugh, and then the audience are on your side and they want you to do well. And I managed to win a best newcomer at this event, which was brilliant. It gave me the confidence to do it at the PSA. And then in South Africa, it was again a complete fluke. I was in the audience, and the compere asked me what I do, and I said, oh, I'm a professional speaker. And a guy that I'd met out there said, oh, and she does comedy. And with that, they got me up onto the stage, and I was like so not prepared, but it was brilliant. It was like just one of those kind of, you know, impromptu things,
which is fantastic. We've always got to really push our boundaries, because we don't really know what we can do until we challenge ourselves to actually do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that perhaps that's what you do in your coaching. You're constantly pushing people beyond what they think that they can do.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, Julie, how do you go from unemployed single parent with no savings, about to lose your home, to successful entrepreneur, and motivational speaker in just 4 years?
Oh, through necessity. Like, you know, when you say it like that, it sounds like a rags to riches story. But, you know, I had a very good job before I got pregnant with my daughter, and then I got made redundant. So it was the fourth time I've been made redundant in 10 years, and it was during the height of the Olympics. The Olympics was what had become an expert on, and I was just unprepared for motherhood, you know, and everything that come with that. And then my relationship broke down. So, you know, becoming a single parent was never on my, you know, life plan, let's say. But it was one of those things that happened. And, you know, with all of that, I lost my identity. I didn't have my own money. You know, I was on the verge of being homeless, you know, and I'm not saying that to sound dramatic. That's as bad as it got. But I knew with the way the world was, I didn't want to go back into the public sector because the jobs weren't there, and they were really, you know, everyone was restructuring. So I kind of knew no one was coming to save me. I had to do it by myself. And because of that, because I didn't have any savings, because I didn't have anybody else to bail me out, everything that I launched had to be a success. So, you know, it gave me this fearlessness, because what's the worst that could happen? Like, the worst had already happened. So I just really kind of built my business on the premise of just being honest with people. So I'd launch a program and go, hey, I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see, you know, let's see if it works. If it's crap, so be it, you know. And in many ways, I brought my followers of my blog with me on this business journey, and that inspired them too. And you know, a number of my clients have now gone on to set up their own businesses in different areas. So I think it was, you know, absolute necessity, and, you know, doing things fast. I mean, like, I write books, I write them fast. I'll write a book in a month and get it out on the market so it's making me money, because I don't have the luxury of saying, oh, you know, I'll spend a few months researching it and then I'll sit down and write a little bit every day. No, like, I feel like, you know, that book is going to make me money. I need that money now. So I'll write it really quickly. And, you know, and because I've been blogging for such a long time, I find the writing really easy. So I think, none of it was done by design, really. I didn't have a business plan or anything like that. It was more a case of, right, you know, the bills need to be paid. And there was definitely times where my mortgage was fast approaching, and I would be like, right, what am I going to sell? What am I going to launch? And with that kind of necessity comes creativity and a sense of fearlessness. Like, you know, I have to do something. It's, you know, do something creative and bold, or go and work in McDonald's. Like, you know, that's kind of the options I had, really.
And that's quite a motivator.
Yeah.
McDonald's. Well, let me ask you a bit more about writing, because last week I spoke to the great Graham Jones, and he's really an overachiever, authoring 29 books. Now, I know that you write very fast, and you've got a system. You've authored 8 books, and it's probably 10 by now. I know that you've got a writing system where you do it in days and a month. So can you explain a bit more about how you approach it?
Yeah, so I do something called the Writers Marathon, where I get groups of people from all over the world. Actually, it's quite interesting because they're all on different time zones, and I get them to commit to giving me 26.2 hours of their life. So 26.2 is in miles, is what a marathon is. So that's why it's called a Writers Marathon. And within that 26.2 hours, it's all about commitment, getting rid of any idea of things being perfect, just making shit happen. Like, that is the premise of it. And I will literally go through every stage of the writing process. So understanding it's always about self-published books. It's always using kind of the Amazon family of paperback, ebook, and then audiobook. You know, using the technology that's available, that's open to all of us. You know, we don't need massive budgets. We don't need permission anymore from publishers. We could just go out there. So I get them to kind of commit to come up with their title, to commission a cover, you know, and even if the first cover is rubbish, at least they have a rubbish one to go, that's not what I want. Whereas, you know, so many people with book writing procrastinate and dither at each step of the way. So before they know it, a year has passed, even if they had a desire to write a book really quickly. And I think the pace of the world now means that if you take 2 years to write a book, the world's moved on. And quite often
out of date.
It's out of date. You know, so, and, you know, the last book that I wrote, which was all about running marathons, literally I got about 4 emails one day from women going, oh my God, I've just got a place in the London Marathon. I don't know how to train for it. Do you have a book on this? And I was like, no, I don't, but I should. So I was like, yes, and it's coming out, you know, and I literally gave myself like, you know, 30 days to write the book, and I put it up on Amazon before I'd written a single word. And it went up into like #1 in the running charts on Amazon before I'd even written it. You know, so that I had this system, which is all about facing your fears and making it happen and not worrying about perfection.
So when you have the Writers Marathon, and also when you're writing the books, and because it's this, you know, sell it and then create it and just do it as fast as possible and don't worry about perfection, is there like a bite-size length that is workable for you and your audience? So do you write like 100 pages, you know, ebook or book sized? Is there, because I've noticed that books are getting thinner and smaller because we've got less time. So, yeah. I mean, what is this, you know, the books that you create, what is the formula?
So I tend to write books that are around between 60 and 80,000 words. So they're substantial enough. But they're not, you know, they're not, well, you know, War and Peace, you know, they tend to be on one topic, very kind of, they're not bite-sized, but, you know, you can get through it in a weekend. But it's more about kind of ideas and concepts and stories to move people from one place to another. You know, because some of my books are about running, a lot of it is real practical, technical advice that is only good for a runner, really. But you know, a lot of information you can be found on the web anyway. So for me, it's about, you know, I am one of only, you know, I am one of a lot of experts when it comes to the running world. And if you look on Amazon at how many running books there are hundreds to choose from. You know, people will Google running a marathon and 100 books will come up. So what people are buying from me is me and my experiences. So my books are always jam-packed full of stories and techniques that are, you know, they're bespoke to me. So they're not, you know, people, some men will read books and go, I've never heard of that technique before. And I'm like, of course you wouldn't. It's my technique. You know, so I think that's how we become experts, is not always by dissecting other people's work and repackaging it. It's coming up with your own stuff, coming up with your own stories. No one can turn around and say to me, I'm not an expert, because I'm an expert in my experiences of what I'm writing about. And you can't tell somebody that they're not an expert when they're writing about the stuff that's happened to them.
Yeah, and even at 80,000 words, that is no small feat. That is not a small book. That is quite a chunk of your expertise.
But I think, interestingly, a lot of people go, oh my God, I could never write that much. But we have, you know, when you've lived on this planet for 40 odd years, you have all this stuff in your head. So, you know, when I write my books, I'm not really going out and researching, because I've done the research through experience. So most of those words are already in my head. It's just the process of sitting and getting it out onto paper and making sense of it in a way that's palatable. I don't think, you know, majority of us in the business world have to, unless you're doing something that's really kind of academic, you know, if you've got systems within your business, you know what they are. You just need to find new and interesting ways of sharing them. So I think people overthink books, and if you just kind of took what's already in your head and packaged it up nicely, I think it would be of enormous value. But of course, what we do is we say, oh, there's already a book on time management out there, or, you know, my book could never compete with, you know, Louise Hay, or, you know, all these kind of big kind of authors that are the kind of the leader in, you know, in their topic. And, you know, whichever businesses we're running, we know who those people are, but they're not you, and they've not had the experiences that you've had. And I often see myself as like, I don't know, I'm like a messenger. So, you know, I'm not a guru. I don't have all of the answers, but I have my answers, and I present it in a way that's palatable for the women that read my stuff. And women often say, oh my God, Julie, it's like sitting in a pub with you, or sitting over coffee and having a chat. It's really informal, because that's how I am. That's how I present. That's who I am. And that's why women buy my books.
It's excellent. You've also you talk about setting and achieving big, fat, stupid goals. Now, obviously, this is part of your whole thing, whether it's, you know, your writer's marathon, whatever it may be. Explain a bit more about that.
So I think that in life, we're kind of encouraged to take incremental steps in our life, you know, small, you know, we say, you know, let's create these small habits, these small, you know, little steps up the mountain until we get to the top. Life is so short. If we take that approach, we can only do one or two fantastic things in our lifetime. Whereas I think if you set yourself big, fat, stupid goals, which are so ridiculous in their scale that they make you grow exponentially to catch up with them. So for me, I think the first big, fat, stupid goal I had was running my first marathon. And at the time, I could barely run to the top of my road. But the fact that I'd signed up for it meant that I had to commit to improving my diet, exercising more, joining a running club, learning about marathon plans, getting some good shoes, getting myself a proper sports bra, like all these things that I'd put off doing. The fact that I'd signed up for this marathon, the fear of it made me step up and go, no, Julie, this is not a joke. I need to do this. And I think that's what big, fat, stupid goals do. They're not things on your bucket list. They're not things you want to do in your business. They're things that scare the living daylight out of you and take you to a whole new level. And with that comes the admiration of people and the support of people, because you're not just doing what everybody else is doing. You're doing stuff that makes people go, oh, I wish I had her courage, or I wish I could do that. And everyone can do them. It's just about kind of deciding you're gonna.
It's a wonderful thing. I was speaking to my neighbour the other day, and he sees me on Facebook getting up early and going to my yoga sessions at 6 o'clock in the morning. And he says, oh, you really inspire me. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful that we as normal people can inspire, you know, not just your neighbour, but people that you've never met all over the world just by doing your thing. That's the one thing I love about social media, is that you can connect with and touch and people that you've never met, that you never will meet, just by being who you are, which is wonderful.
Yeah. And I think there's this thing around kind of, you know, there are people that we put out there as role models, you know, and often they're celebrities or they're leaders in their field. And actually there was some research done a few years ago about kind of what inspires women to play sport. And it said that people are more inspired by their neighbour or their friend or their sister than they are people like Jess Ennis and Paula Radcliffe, because those people seem too far the other way.
Yeah,
absolutely
And
unattainable.
it's exactly the same women in business. It's the same stuff. So you have Michelle Mone, and that's great what she's done. And no one, you know, women tend not to shoot her down, whether the media does. But actually, that's not the thing that inspires people. It's actually the shopkeeper, you know, the person you can speak to, the thing that feels more realistic of what's doable. And I think that's why you're inspirational to people. We are just normal people doing our thing, having our struggles and talking about it and just trying to power through. And I think that's more inspiring.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your 10-week transformational Living a Bigger Life program, because I know that this starts at the end of May.
It does, yeah. So what I found a couple of years back is that women were joining my running programs, and they joined them because they wanted to run, but the stuff that they were asking me about had nothing to do with running. So they'd be like, oh, you know, I was supposed to go out for a run tonight, but my husband was being a complete idiot and I can't get through to him how important this is. And then somebody else would be like, you know, I can't find the time. Yes, so there were all these other external forces that were preventing women from achieving things in their running life. But also those things were also impacting on their relationships, their work aspirations. And I noticed that a lot of women were joining my running groups because they found it difficult to be visible outside of the online space. So, you know, there were plenty of running clubs they could have joined, but for one reason or another, they would join in my one, which was quite secretive and quite private, and no one could see what they were talking about. So there was some stuff around visibility. And what I've seen is that when women do something extraordinary, like run not even a marathon, but a 5K, it forces them to step out of themselves and to be visible, and they become role models and they inspire other people. So I was like, okay, so I can't do all of this life coaching stuff within the context of my running programs, but perhaps I could create a life coaching program that used similar kind of theories and ideas, but was not about fitness. Because I had also had lots of women that I'd meet at conferences that go, I'm not fat, I hate running, but I still want to work with you, you know, and at the time I had no programs to offer them. So Living a Bigger Life is about women being more visible, coming up with kind of working out what they want. Like, I work with a lot of women that get to a stage in their life where they're plodding along, they're relatively happy, but they've lost their sense of identity. They don't know what they want anymore. And they give so much to everybody else and they help everybody else make their dreams come true. But they don't feel like they can do anything for themselves anymore. So it's a 10-week program, but it has lifetime access. So what women tend to do is they do the program once, learn a bit about themselves, and then go through it again and learn more about themselves. But the whole premise is to take those 10 weeks to come up with a big fat stupid goal, and then to get the support of the rest of the community to achieve those goals. And we've had women that have yesterday a woman announced that she was pregnant, and I was like, I set up a business, it could be climb a mountain, it could be write a book. So the goals are, you know, they're never the same. For some women it's more about, you know, getting their mental health in check, or creating a new habit, or, you know, and some of them are big, some of them are, I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to set myself up as a massage therapist. You know, the goals are very, very broad, but it is all about stuff that women, you know, just needed a bit of time and a bit of space to uncover about themselves.
So Julie, tell us about one of your big, fat, scary goals.
So I don't know, I've got lots of big, fat, stupid goals. But a couple of years back, when I went to one of the PSA conventions, I come away, and you come away from these events with lots of actions and lots of things to explore and lots of ideas. And I said, no, I want to come away with one thing. So my thing was that I wanted to become an international speaker, because all of the speaking that I'd done had either been in the UK or virtually, you know, via things like this. So I was like, I actually want to stand on a stage in another country and, you know, do my thing. And literally the very next day I got an email about the PSA event in South Africa. And I was like, it's a sign. I've set the intention and it's literally landed on my desk. And at the time I wasn't, you know, this was over a year ago, my speaking career wasn't where it is now. So it seemed like a ridiculous thing for me to say that I'm going to go to another convention and stand up there representing the best of the UK, little old me with my stories about being a fat runner. Like, it was a ridiculous idea, but they accepted my proposal, and because of that I up leveled, and I then presented at the PSA London event, and I got feedback there, and every time I did my talk I got better and better. So by the time I went to South Africa, I blew their socks off. You know, I was one of only 2 speakers to get a standing ovation throughout the whole event, and it absolutely made me realize that I'm a good speaker and that the world needs to hear my stuff. So, you know, I'm not quite there in terms of being an international speaker, but that is my aspiration. And, you know, I'm off to next week. I'm going to San Diego to Lisa Nichols' convention. And, you know, she's a real kind of role model for me, because I think things are different in the States. And I've got a lot of clients from the US because obviously they have such an obesity problem. And I think they're so much more open. Maybe it's the size of the country, but they're so much more open to personal development. And, you know, I want to do things on the scale that Lisa is doing in the UK. And for me to do that, I have to see how it works. So, you know, I'm a big believer in role models and seeing and mimicking and up leveling in that way. So, you know, I just decided I was going to go and, you know, all the way to San Diego for a weekend to kind of see somebody of her level doing her thing.
It's a beautiful city, so you'll absolutely love it. And I remember when I've been to various conferences and worked at them, and you know, you get 15,000 people. Yeah. I mean, we think, oh, some of our conferences are big, but you know, in America, 15,000 people, and all of those are opportunities as well. So I know you'll absolutely love it. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We're going to have to do this again. We're going to do this after you come back from Lisa Nichols, because I absolutely love her as well. But I did want to say, Julie, I absolutely love your website. It's so colourful and vibrant, just like you. So your website address is simply your name, isn't it?
It is. It's juliecreffield.com.
Great. So everyone can go there and find information about your transformational program. I know we're going to have you speaking at PSA Southeast very soon. And I would like to thank you for your time and sharing your insight, and have a lovely day.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.